Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, this is Jesse with the Common Nerd, bringing you pop culture and all things nerdy through a common sense lens. And man, oh man, it just seems like it's another day in EY where we find out if most likely there's going to end up being another canceled Star Wars project. And boys and girls, we know Paramount is out there now, especially with their new daddy bosses of Skydance, just going out there and trying to sign major people out there left and right, no matter what they can try to do, so that way they can hold on to them and hopefully actually produce some good quality content from Skydance Paramount out there. And one of those folks, of course, is none other than James Mangold. It was just announced out there in the trade magazines that he just signed a big old long-term contract with Paramount Skydance where they'll basically have him exclusive for the next few years. But the question about this is, though, Disney Star Wars told us that James Mangold, after the absolute obvious smashing success of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Dysentery that lost hundreds of millions of dollars at the box office, that of course we're going to get a movie from him all about the original source of the Jedi Order. And although I do like the sound of that, anything under Star Wars Kathleen Kennedy out there, boys and girls, we knew it would be a hot, dismal, disastrous dumpster fire. And well, it turns out once again we have another canceled project, quietly canceled because they'll never say it out loud. And of course the shills will keep on doing their shill nonsense out there because apparently over there under Kathleen Kennedy's Lucasfilm, no Star Wars project is ever truly dead. But boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, all of us common sense folks out there know a whole lot better, because as you can see over here from the headline at thatparkplace.com, James Mangold's Star Wars movie in doubt as director signs overall film deal with Paramount. Because of course it's not just Star Wars, there's also a very good possibility that the Swamp Thing movie has been canceled as well, because James Mangold was supposed to be responsible for that. And honestly, it's one of them situations where I loved his Logan movie out there with our old Wolverine out there. It was incredible. It was really well done. But that was James Mangold all on his own, not unlike under he was with Disney's Dysentery Desire. Disney's disastrous dumpster fire of course, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Dysentery. I more blame Kathleen Kennedy for that one, but at the end of the day, he was the director, he took the job, and he took the paycheck. So honestly, this is probably for the best that the Star Wars project is essentially canceled. But at the end of the day, boys and girls, we all know the truth, and despite all of Hollywood's massive lies out there. So we're going to check out all these articles, we're going to get all of the juicy details and let you know exactly what's going on. And of course, some of the details behind James Mangold's new sweet, cushy deal over there at Paramount Skydance. But before we do, if you do enjoy our content, hit that like button, share with all your friends, and subscribe or follow if you have not already, boys and girls, because we are grinding. We are growing. We just crossed 2,200. We're on our sale of 23. And I think we're sitting at like 2367, and I could not do that without every single one of you. Also, leave us a comment in the section down below later what you think about all this. Does it surprise you at all that we've got another Star Wars movie out there, another Star Wars project that has been quietly canceled, and they're moving on to the rest of the world? Were you excited about Swamp Thing from DC with James Mangold, or you maybe think this might be the best overall, considering the Dial of Dysentery and how much of a disastrous dumpster fire that was? Let us know what you think about all that in the comment section down below. To support the channel, please check out the links in the description as well. And you know what? Just for kicks, let's start over here with Matt McGloin. James Mangold has signed an overall deal with Paramount and Skydance, which raises new speculation about the status of his previously announced Star Wars and DCU Swamp Thing movies. Deadline reports Paramount Pictures inked a deal with Mangold under which the Logan and Ford and Ferrari director will develop, direct, and produce feature projects for the Skydance-owned studio. The deal is one of the first major moves by Paramount's new studio co-chairs Josh Greenstein and Dana Goldberg, who said James Mangold is one of the most talented filmmakers working today, and we could not be more excited to welcome him to Paramount family, starting with High Side and many more collaborations to come. Mangold added he was thrilled to partner with Paramount and praised their enthusiasm for big screen films, which personally, it sounds like it'll all be a good thing out there. But really what comes down to the question as to whether or not this is all going to be going forward is the way this was worded over there in one of the interesting articles out there. Because this is what it comes down to. Obviously, we've gone over their history and everything else, because a lot of as according to the Hollywood Reporter, Mangold's new deal puts at least 2 high-level projects at other companies in question: his Star Wars film for Lucasfilm and his planned Swamp Thing movie for DC Studios. The outlet didn't mince words, stating flatly that he was developing those projects. implying through past tense that his commitments may now be shifting. Was being the key word there. Mangold was developing the Star Wars movie Dawn of the Jedi for Lucasfilm, which was to have explored the origins of the Force. Was, right? Unless the Hollywood Reporter knew otherwise, why wouldn't they be saying is still currently developing for Star Wars? Why would they not say that? Because the Hollywood Reporter knows those projects are dead. They are over. They are canceled. They're just not willing to say it out loud, because if they officially announce that, then of course we'd all know the truth about what's going on behind Lucasfilm. That would be them admitting it. And of course, that would cause them a lot of nasty ire over there with KK at Lucasfilm. So they can't formally say that out loud, but they can't help, at least maybe even subconsciously, slipping it in that clearly Mangold is no longer attached to these projects in any way, shape, or form. And he was developing a horror feature for DC Studios centered on the character Swamp Thing. That alone is enough to raise eyebrows. Lucasfilm has a history of letting directors drift away while refusing to admit that projects are dead. That factor, the fact that major industry trades are already referencing Mangold's Star Wars work in the past tense feels like a canary in the coal mine. And of course, they do have a long history of this. For over a decade, Lucasfilm has earned a reputation for announcing splashy Star Wars projects that never actually materialize. Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron was rolled out with a high-profile teaser and press tour, only to quietly vanish. That was the one that Gina Carano was supposed to be the star character for that one after all of her popularity with the fans and all of the success she had. But of course, she didn't agree with Disney's spirit of the age, especially Kathleen Kennedy, so that got her bye-bye. Kevin Feige's movie, dead on arrival. Rian Johnson's Promise trilogy, nowhere to be seen. And that was something that they announced post the Disney sequel trilogy that has never come to fruition. Taika Waititi's movie has gone from in development to punchline, because literally we know Taika Waititi is no longer working for Disney in any form whatsoever after all the disastrous dumpster fires they've had. Even the so-called Rey movie with Daisy Ridley attached has faced silence instead of momentum. And literally the closest thing we've heard about a word about that movie is the rumor that Star Wars Starfighter from Sean Levy will lead into a Rey movie. But after trouting the beautiful Daisy Ridley out on stage, mum has been all we've heard from them about that. Absolutely nothing. But of course, the spirit of the age simps out there, the Lucasfilm sycophants, all of the ones that worship at the same altar that Kathleen Kennedy does, could not help themselves to try to shut all of this down. Because, you know, Gizmodo, that completely and totally fair and honest reporting place out there that has clearly never been accessed media in any way, shape, or form and has absolutely not pushed the spirit of the age's agenda at all. Right, boys and girls? Well, over at Gizmodo, Jermaine Lusser reported that Mangold's representation insists he remains attached and available to develop all his other projects. Oh, really? Then why wasn't that a public statement made by his representatives or by Mangold himself? Instead, Gizmodo's sources say that his representatives, are any of those representatives publicly named? Is any of that stuff out there? Well, is attached and available to develop all his other projects. Oh, really? Well, he's available, apparently, except for the fact that he signed an exclusivity deal for Paramount Skydance for the next 2 years. That includes both Star Wars and Swamp Thing. Of course, this statement never actually says those movies are in any active production. They could be interpreted as Mangold's rep saying he's ready, but the studios aren't calling because they know those projects are dead on arrival. Lusser followed up by saying on X, saying that Star Wars and Swamp Thing are still alive as they previously were, which that doesn't mean anything whatsoever. They're just alive as they previously were. So basically, it's nothing more than an idea that they had around the writer's room over there at Disney Lucasfilm, and that's as far as it got, right? They never were in active development to begin with, when staying as alive might mean not alive at all. It sounds less like a firm commitment and more like damage control, a way to preserve optimality without actually promising anything. In layman's terms, that's spin. That's Hollywood spin for Gizmodo simping for the spirit of the age, Kathleen Kennedy and Disney Lucasfilm. So color us shocked there at all. James Mangold signed with Paramount doesn't guarantee the death of Dawn of the Jedi, but it casts serious doubts on whether the project was ever truly viable to begin with. It wasn't. And in the baggage of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Dysentery, it's hard to imagine Lucasfilm doubling down on Mangold as the man to revise the Star Wars theatrical fortunes, which of course we know isn't going to happen. It's not going to happen. They're going to do that they're going to do that with Mando and Grogu, which that's going to flop and prove it's not going to work. And then Starfighter is going to flop too, because everybody's going to find out that yes, Daisy Ridley and all of that stuff will lead to that movie. If history is any guide, Lucasfilm will never officially cancel this film. They'll just stop talking about it, quietly moving on, while fans are left wondering what could have been. At this point, the silence from Lucasfilm speaks louder than any announcement ever could. And they're absolutely right. Matt's absolutely right when he talks about all of this stuff as well. Because that's what it comes down to, boys and girls. We know this is never going to happen. Kathleen Kennedy has essentially driven Lucasfilm to the point of bankruptcy. If it wasn't being propped up for the House of Mouse, if it was still its own independent studio making things on its own without the backing of Disney, that studio would have collapsed. Because every one of the Disney Star Wars trilogy movies, especially Rise of Palpatine, lost money. Beyond a shadow of a doubt. We have the tax documents that prove, despite making $1 billion globally, that movie flopped at the box office. Star Wars television shows, the ratings just continued to go down and go down and go down. We had, 2 good seasons out of The Mandalorian before it went the same way as everything else did into Girl Boss and tried to replace Mando with Katie Sackhoff's character, which Katie Sackhoff only said herself that was the most miserable experience she'd ever had working on a movie, and it caused her to actually take a break from working in entertainment for several years because of how miserable it was to work on that. So between that and everything else, their toys end up at the Ollie's bargain bin. They don't make any profit. I've argued that they have easily been made Disney Lucasfilm, Disney Star Wars into a $30 billion disastrous dumpster fire, because that is arguably how much money, if not more, that they have lost doing this. So why wouldn't these projects be canceled? Sean Levy's only getting a movie greenlit and going forward because of the success of Deadpool and Wolverine, and probably because of some Hollywood shady accounting out there that Disney decides to take some of those profits, shift them over to justify making that movie. But it doesn't matter, because this stuff is going to flop. This stuff is going to fail. And this, besides all of the activism that Kathleen Kennedy has openly pushed for inside of Star Wars, trying to turn it into a girls' brand, which has proven to be the most financially disastrous dumpster fire of a decision ever in Hollywood's history, it's over. It doesn't matter. Even if you were a fan still hoping for good things, this is what they continue to do. Quietly cancel projects while lying to your face the entire time, saying it's still coming and it's still happening. Because that's what it is. Disney Lucasfilm has become nothing but a viper's nest filled with liars and people that want to deceive and destroy. And until that changes, until somebody else controls Star Wars, none of that is going to change. And clearly, even James Mangold realizes that, because now he's signed himself a big fat deal over there at Paramount Skydance. And guess what, boys and girls? Star Wars Dawn of the Jedi and most likely Swamp Thing are never going to happen. And at the end of the day, that is Kathleen Kennedy's fault. She danced with the devil, believed all of the lies he whispered in her ears while they were under the pale moonlight, and is going to get burned for it. She will be remembered as the woman that destroyed the Star Wars franchise. And after all, it's exactly what she deserves. A big shout out to all of our subscribers and members out there. Thanks for watching, and make sure you guys like and subscribe if you have not already.